Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking what I can only describe as a massive mathematical puzzle. We are going to look at a specific theory that attempts to literally reverse engineer history. We'll walk through how this source uses ancient biblical dates to try and pinpoint everything from the exact birth year of Jesus all the way to a modern-day countdown. It is fascinating stuff, so let's just dive right in. So you might be wondering, how exactly do some of these scholars go about calculating the end of days? Well, the theory we're exploring today definitely doesn't rely on guesswork. Not at all. Instead, it builds a strict step-by-step mathematical timeline that mashes up Roman history, our modern calendar, and some very specific ancient texts. Let's break down exactly how this argument is built, piece by piece. The absolute bedrock for all the math we are about to do starts right here, in the Gospel of Luke. It states that Jesus was baptized and turned 30 during the 15th year of the reign of Tiberius Caesar. Now, for the creator of this timeline, this isn't just some random historical footnote, it is a precise mathematical variable. If you can find the exact historical window of Tiberius's 15th year, well, you've just found the starting peg for the entire timeline. Right, so let's look at the history. We know for a fact that Tiberius Caesar began his sole reign in September of 14 AD. But here's the catch. We're dealing with an ancient agricultural calendar here, and that runs from fall to fall. So, if we count forward, the 15th year of Tiberius lands exactly between the fall of 28 AD and the fall of 29 AD. This means that, according to this line, Jesus would have celebrated his 30th birthday right around the summer or fall of 29 AD. Okay, with our anchor firmly set at 29 AD, finding the birth year should be super straightforward, right? Just basic subtraction. Well, actually, scratch that. There is a major historical quirk we have to account for. When you count backward 30 years, you have to remember that there is literally no year zero. Our Gregorian calendar just flips directly from 1 AD straight backward into 1 BC. It trips people up all the time. And because of that little quirk, skipping that non-existent year 0, the math points perfectly to 2 BC as the calculated birth year of Christ. But what's really interesting is that this 29 AD anchor point actually unlocks something way, way bigger than just a birthday. It unlocks the cycle of the Jubilee. Let's fast forward just a bit to Luke chapter 4. Jesus has just returned from the wilderness. He walks into the synagogue, opens the book of Isaiah, and declares the acceptable year of the Lord. Now, theologians argue that reading this specific text at this specific time wasn't just a coincidence. For them, it was a formal, very public declaration of a biblical Jubilee year. So let's map this all out. We know the 15th year of Tiberius spans fall 28 to fall 29 AD. And scholars generally agree that slightly over a year passed between the baptism and that declaration in the synagogue. If you add that chunk of time to the fall of 29 AD, we land squarely in the fall of 30 AD. Boom. We now have a historical pin dropped on a verified Jubilee year, going from the fall of 30 AD to the fall of 31 AD. Hold on, though. Before we start projecting that date thousands of years into the future, we need to ask, what actually is a Jubilee? According to ancient law in Leviticus, you count 7 Sabbaths of years. So 7 times 7, which is 49 years. The 50th year is the Jubilee. It's a massive deal. Total rest for the land, debts are completely forgiven, slaves are freed. But the real question is, how does the math of that cycle actually work across centuries? And this right here is where a pretty huge historical debate kicks off. You basically have two camps. The 50-year standalone method assumes that a distinct 50 year is just added on after a 49-year count. But the opposing continuous 49-year method argues that the 50th Jubilee year actually doubles as year 1 of the next cycle. Now, the source theory we're exploring today firmly rejects that standalone year. They argue that throwing in an extra separate year would completely break the sacred continuous rhythm of sevens. Therefore, the absolute core mathematical engine of this entire theory boils down to this one number, 49. Because that 50th year overlaps and acts as year 1 of the next cycle, the true distance between one Jubilee and the next is always exactly 49 years. If you want to find every subsequent Jubilee throughout all of human history, you don't add 50. You simply take your starting year and add exactly 49 years over and over again, like a giant ticking clock. All right, here is where ancient history crashes right into the modern era. Start with our base year of 30 AD. Add 49 years and the next Jubilee is 79 AD. Add 49 again, you get 128 AD. And if you follow this unbroken chain of 49s, leaping century after century, you eventually hit to year 1990 AD. Add one final cycle to 1990, and you arrive at 2039 AD. Which brings us to the final and frankly most explosive projection of this explainer. If the next massive biblical jubilee is slated for the fall of 2039, and you operate on this source's belief that a final eschatological countdown lasts exactly 14 years, well, you just subtract 14. The result? Fall 2025. According to this strict mathematical timeline, fall 2025 marks the starting point leading right into that ultimate jubilee. Wow. So we've traced this single timeline from an ancient Roman Caesar backward to the birth of Christ and propelled it thousands of years into the future using an unbroken cycle of 49s. And I think it leaves us with a really provocative question to end on. Why are we humans so driven to decode the mathematics of our past? Perhaps finding these hidden clocks inside ancient texts gives us a profound sense of order, a feeling that human history isn't just random chaos, but a meticulously designed timeline counting down to a grand finale. Something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer. I'll see you next time.